Hello, welcome to Framework and the Cameron-A-Rama. I am Al Schwartz. With me, as always, is John Bernard. I am speaking very quickly because we have a lot to get through today. It is Titanic, James Cameron's very literally titled film about the biggest ship ever sinking. But that's not really what it's about, right? We have guests here I should probably introduce as well. Returning champion Gwen Sisco. Gwen, say hi.
It's so good to be here, guys.
Hey, it is. Gwen last joined us on our Fight Club episode, one of my favorites that we've done. You've done a great job of picking movies to get us for. Our other guest is a close friend / family member of mine that I recently learned went through a real Titanic buff phase in her youth. This is Mrs. Meg Flynn. Meg,
hello.
Say hello and tell me about the last time you saw Celine Dion in concert.
Thank you for having me. Yes, that is where we should start. I saw Celine Dion in concert, my last concert before the pandemic started. It was December of 2019, and It was incredible. It really was. The My Heart Will Go On song for that performance, she had a backdrop of lights behind her, which as the song continued, you realized were actually drones, and they came out into the audience and like swirled in like a tornado. Like she like looked like she was directing the drones. It was, I mean, I love that I'm starting this with a visual description for all the podcast listeners, but
it sounds rad.
It was pretty incredible.
I'm deeply jealous.
Was this an encore number? Was this like the closer?
No, it was like, I think like she changed outfits like 5 different times. So it was hard to tell when she was like stopping for real and when she was just going to change her outfit. But no, it was like probably like toward the end, but not the closer. No. She started with It's All Coming Back to Me Now, which just blew my mind. I'm like, you're starting with this?
That's a flex.
Yeah.
There's never gonna be a night when they don't do My Heart Will Go On.
No,
of course.
I just wondered if it's a closer or if it's if it's an opener. Nah, you can't open with it.
No, it was.
Oh gosh, no.
I think it was probably like it wasn't even the closer, and it was that like incredible. But yeah, I think it was pretty close to the end.
Okay, so let's go back to 1996.
Okay,
and you know this was a phenomenon in the theaters, and the whole thing was people, especially younger women folk, going to see it over and over and over again. So how many times did you guys all see this in the theater? I think I did twice. Once with my family at Christmas and once in independent study.
I'm going to say 2 to 3 times. I feel like there was a third time, but I'm not positive.
Okay.
John?
I saw this once in theaters, once on video, and once last week. That's 3 times.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, once on 2 videos.
Yeah, exactly. Precisely.
Meg, how about you?
So yeah, I was only allowed to see it in theaters once, but it was like right before it was like leaving the theaters that I got to see it, because I had to campaign my mother to allow me to see this movie.
Was she more concerned about the drowning or the French girls?
I have no idea what she was actually concerned about me seeing, because like when it actually came to seeing the movie, like we had no rules or regulations about what was allowed in our household. Like there was no like TV shows that we couldn't watch. There was no movies that like were not allowed to be shown in front of me. Like I would just have to like get out of the room basically. So I don't know how it came down to like Titanic was like the movie my mom chose to like put her foot down. I think she thought it was like too much death, obviously, but I watched like war movies. Like I saw other like.
You sure this wasn't some
movies.
Like forgotten punishment for something?
Yeah, like... I don't know, but I was extremely into history. Al knows, like as a kid, I was like very dorky and like very into history. So I really wanted to I like read everything I could about the Titanic, and like my mom like knew that I was like really, really into it. And for some reason, this is the thing that I like could not I could not see. So I finally I got to see it once in theaters, and then I watched it a million times on VHS, and I've seen it. I would just finished watching it today.
So how long for everybody had it been since you had seen it last? Because it would have been 20 years for me.
At least 20 years. More. Yeah.
The whole thing?
Well,
that's a different question. How many times have I stumbled upon it and watched 20 minutes? Yes.
When was the last time you watched a sizable chunk of Titanic before this week is what I'm getting at.
I saw the speaking of the last thing before pandemics, my last big getaway for a friend's wedding. That night I went back in the hotel room and I watched the entire second half of it. So
that pairs well with wedding. Yeah.
Yeah.
So romantic. The last half especially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think probably a few months ago was the last time. But I only watched a few months ago. I only watched the first 40 minutes of it.
I have a bit of an OCD where if I watch part of a movie, it's not enough to just watch that part of the movie. I kind of have to even if I can't do it at the time, I was I got to go back and watch the beginning now.
Which is an investment with this film.
If I don't,
you have to consciously avoid Titanic exposure.
Yeah, you've only seen it 3 times.
Could wreck your week. It took me this rewatch took me 3 nights to get through. Basically, one night just to get to the ship.
Yeah.
And to get to 1912. But
surprised how much there is before. I always forget how much of that is in the movie.
It's it's
down.
25 minutes. Yeah.
There's 21 minutes until you even see Billy Zane.
Yeah. Which is how one measures films, really.
When the movie really begins, yes.
Yeah.
That's when there's a Zane sighting. No, that's basically this is one of the few podcast movies where I thought, okay, my wife might actually enjoy watching this with me, and she agreed to it, and she fell asleep 28 minutes in. So basically we got to the ship. That's one night. And then I made it to hitting the iceberg another night, and then did the whole sinking in a separate night.
Would we agree that the movie's too long?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, look, here's the thing. If it's anybody but James Cameron doing this, then I don't think there's any way you get the framing device through editing on this. At the script stage, I think you're this is going to be a long ass movie just if we're sticking to the boat. And we can lose a solid 30 to 35 minutes by cutting out this framing device that is not entirely necessary.
It's got to be more than that. It's got to be 45 minutes, 50 minutes of just the James Cameron fantasy of himself.
That's the thing. The Bill Paxton as James Cameron analog. I don't know how I forgot about this, but he's just he's playing James Cameron in this, basically.
Yeah.
Or Brock Lovett at the James Cameron analog.
James Cameron with an earring.
Oh, but Paxton's. I don't want him gone. He's so great in this.
He is one of my
fine.
favorites.
He's so smart.
He's a good actor.
Now,
he's
I
remember parts of the movie.
being a teenager in the movie theater, being "Get this Paxton shit out of here!" I don't.
It is. It's sort of like the part of the Assassin's Creed video game that you're just why are we in the present here?
I appreciated the submersible going into the wreckage. That was beautiful stuff, and I love that they captured that. I didn't care about him at all. He felt like a real sleazebag in the movie, and I only kind of cared.
He's going to bring that Paxton energy.
Glorious Swanson business.
Okay, so here's something that may get me booed. I kind of think Gloria Swanson's terrible in this.
It's Gloria Stewart.
Great.
Gloria Stewart. Right.
Sorry.
Something about that felt wrong, but I couldn't place
Sorry,
her.
that was me.
Is that the Sunset Boulevard actress? I think is Gloria.
It is.
That'd been cool. But she would have been 130.
Who's Gloria Swanson?
She was an old time black and white movie star.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was the pictures that got small. Yeah.
Gloria Stewart is
Rose.
old Kate Winslet.
She's just an old woman. I'm glad, she's fine.
She's not good. No.
No, wasn't I a dish?
She was that line.
let's talk about the acting generally here, and because I think there's other performances that are more interesting, more vital even than Bill Paxton's work, and I think we got to talk about Billy Zane and obviously the two leads.
Billy Zane and the two leads, yes.
Yes. And then there's a cadre of British, stage actors that are just doing regal, resigned deaths at a certain point that we could talk about, but they're not as important as Zane.
All right, foregrounding the Zane of it all. I have more to say about how bad the prologue is.
Oh, okay. Well,
Okay.
Fine. Let's go in order.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Mhm.
the prologue. Go ahead.
Now, it strikes me that, like, with that prologue, this movie is like, it's the greatest love story of all time. And also, aren't shipwrecks interesting? Aren't they really great? Don't you learn so much? This is a story that exploring shipwrecks can tell you. Could there be a more interesting and useful pastime than shipwreck exploration? I mean, it feels like that is sort of fundamentally what Titanic is about with this format, especially with the cut ending. Have you all seen that?
Oh yes, I've seen the cut ending.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal stuff.
Yeah, like it's crazy to me that this James Cameron fetish stuff is just like all over this beginning of this film, and in a way, with that framing device, it kind of makes it about that more than anything else. Like,
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you a little bit of a vibe of this is a sort of like backdoor pilot for a Discovery Channel reality show about exploring shipwrecks.
Totally,
I'll give you that.
Mm-hmm.
I do agree with you, Al, that like if anyone else had either directed or written, like it never would have made it in. Like it's gotta get out of there.
Well, I said we're going to go in order, but we have to. This is the bookends, so I think to assess its value, you have to talk about the ending too. So maybe we'll leave
Sure.
some of it for there. I would say one thing that is highly functional about this, that is more useful, I thought, because it always struck me as this clunky, unnecessary thing, which is why on earth, when they're flying this 100-year-old woman in to help them search for a diamond, and like, all right, so first things first, we have to show her a computer model we've made of how Titanic hit the iceberg and sank, because she needs to know all that, I guess, for some reason. But in terms of us in the audience understanding the mechanics of how the ship is going to spend the last half of the movie sinking, that's actually really super useful, I think.
It's a super good thing to do. It's the only really useful thing that this sequence does. And yes, the in-world explanation for it is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, it makes no sense that this character would say these things in as disrespectful a way as that he does.
Right.
Like, it would be,
Seriously.
and she's got a huge ass. Look at that thing. Like all that is ridiculous in world. But yeah, it's really useful.
As a 9-year-old Titanic expert, I can offer some fact checking throughout today's episode also, and it did not break as high as they demonstrate. It was only like 25 or 30 degrees up or something like that. So it wasn't quite as dramatic a flourish at the end.
So you're talking about when it came out initially and then snaps in half?
Yeah.
Pretty dramatic. I mean,
yeah, pretty good shot of the propellers
it's
coming
a
up out
better
of the water.
shot, yeah.
I mean,
And if the pop-up trivia is to be believed on Amazon Prime, even his opening description when he's talking about how it got torn up, he talks about how the iceberg tore holes like Morse code, and apparently that's not true at all. It just busted a rivet, and then that rivet busted open. But the iceberg didn't hit that much.
I have to think that whatever that had to be the prevailing theory at the time or whatever, because I just can't imagine Cameron, who later I think went back to CGI the stars into a more proper position, since they had consulted the star maps of 1912, would not have been loosey-goosey with that type of thing.
Unless the Amazon Prime trivia is inaccurate. Who knows? But there were all kinds of mistakes with like where the sun is setting, and depending on whether they're on the starboard side or not. And apparently he played fast and loose with the things he felt like playing fast and loose with.
Yeah, like there's a lot. There's a surprising amount of fast and loose, which you wouldn't expect from Cameron, and his what with the star thing, which I distinctly remember. But there's characters that are basically they kind of take behind the woodshed and sabotage. Who's that dude? The
The pencil mustache guy.
The pencil mustache guy.
Yeah.
Just character assassination on him because that was sort of the prevailing way that story was told. And
his enemy was William Randolph Hearst. No, it was. Ismay Randolph Hearst had like a rift going back. So when he survived the Titanic, the paper really tore him a new one. It like called him a coward and like all these things that weren't necessarily true.
And Cameron knows that. Cameron knows that, and
Definitely.
still is like, we'll make him a coward.
Yeah.
But he needs villains for the class struggle story, which I think is a really good thing. Yeah, that's true. But also, like, it's funny to make that guy such a villain, and then the like ship's architect or whatever, like such a noble hero. But it seems like
No in between.
from an outside point of view, like they probably share roughly equal loads of responsibility for this, and yet one is a complete villain and one is a complete tragic hero.
The same with the captain too. Like they show the captain like this hero, but like really he like mismanaged the whole situation. Like what?
That was interesting though. I remembered him being a tragic hero figure, and then this time I was struck by like, oh yeah, he really doesn't do much of anything. Like he realizes when he fucked up really bad, and then he just kind of checks out and drowns.
He's like, I'm gonna leave you guys to take care of this.
Yeah, just kind of drowns a bit stoically, but also kind of abdicates responsibility during the sinking. Like,
I'd rather not survive this. Good luck, everyone. Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of that, but we're not to the
no.
you know, stoically drowning montage yet.
Yeah.
That's like 2 hours from now. Are we ready to go back to 1912, or do we have more Paxton thoughts?
Well, quick question: Is this fat nerd? Is he explicitly Harry Knowles, or is he explicitly comic book guy from The Simpsons?
I mean, I don't. Does Harry Knowles a thing at this point?
I don't know. It might be too early to be Harry Knowles. I seem to remember thinking when I was a kid, is that Harry Knowles? But maybe I'm wrong.
Oh, I think Harry Knowles saw this guy and thought, "Hey, that's a look I can pull off." Can't do the Zane.
I mean, this is kind of how we viewed nerds in the 90s. I feel like just like a ridiculous fat character who's just sort of got steam pouring out of his ears and getting huffy about stuff.
It's no social graces whatsoever.
Yeah, I don't think Cameron at any point in this movie was interested in painting characters with nuance.
It is striking. Like one of the least nuanced pieces of characterization that you can imagine. Well, I don't know if that's the right word.
So we are talking about Zane now.
Okay, yes. Zane is very much part of this. Like, he's a pantomime villain in this. I mean, he's
absolutely
and
marvelously so.
Oh, he's always been my favorite part of this film, and I think that's kind of fucked up. I think that reflects poorly on me. But man, is he great in this?
I think he stands out. He's about the most memeable part of this show. Like you remember him because he's got the big, ridiculous line readings.
I actually wrote down quote lines of his. Like that's how stand out it is for me. Like oh yeah, that's a great Zane line.
Yeah. Should we go around with our favorite Zane line?
I wrote down a bunch too. It's hard to pick a favorite, but
it is hard to pick.
Oh, I know mine.
Okay.
All right. Gwen, lead us off.
It's a little slut, isn't it?
I have a real fondness for the trill he gives to. Rose is displeased. What to do? What to do?
What to do? It is his most Simpsons line delivery.
Well, because very much feels like a line that he has to say so we can get Jack to dinner.
Yes.
And he's like, I have to make it sound interesting, so
He did the right thing.
He's trying, yeah.
He's having a
for
ball.
effort.
I mean, he's having so much fun in this movie. More fun than anyone.
I do pretty frequently think about the scene where he throws over the table and just like, Billy Zane was like, this is it. Like, this is going to be in the reel.
Yeah, this
Like,
is my Oscar moment.
This is going to be it for me. Like, you feel for him.
I guess, sorry, I need to do some vocal exercises if I'm going to try and imitate all the mustard that he puts on. I put the diamond in the coat. I put the coat on the girl. But by that point, he's given up on the Oscar reel and accepted, oh, this might be that type of movie, but this is not that type of character. I'm not getting rewarded for this. But I think it's a fantastic performance. I can't believe, John, we did a whole episode.
Comic villains.
Whatever.
Comic villains.
Yeah,
I thought of this too, yeah.
Best comedy villains. And we had a whole subsection about, like, people who aren't in comedies but are giving comedic villain performances. And how do we...
Shit. We missed a big one then.
Yeah, how do we miss Zane in that? This is like a number one example of that.
It's wonderful.
Oh, man.
All the wrong things he gets to say in the first act too is like, God himself could not sink such a ship. What's his name? Picasso or something? He'll never amount to anything. Mark my word. All that. So fun.
It's the way he gestures with the champagne flute as he reiterates he won't.
No, well, she's holding like plyboard this paper on plyboard instead of actual just canvas recreations of anything. Just like looks like you could snap them in half.
Something about the script too, like drags everyone to his level in scenes he's in too. Everyone's at their most melodramatic and silly when they're interacting with Billy Zane or. Just like,
I think David Warner resists the gravitational pull weirdly, but that's about it.
He's
and
pretty
I think
good in it.
they're trying to make a comment on just how absurd this class of people are, and that arrogance is the reason the ship sunk. It's the reason,
oh, absolutely,
like so many people died, and so like the big enemy, the villain is not just Zane, but it's that grandiosity and
it's the class
hoity-toityness
structure he represents. That he embodies so fully.
It's also kind of just James Cameron's writing style too. Like he if we call it a writing style, he like does like,
yeah, sure.
He doesn't he like the more narrative there is at the front end of the movie, like he can't help himself from being as melodramatic as possible, and then he doesn't. It seems like at least he doesn't let anybody else have a pass at the script. Like it's like the slave ship metaphor is.
That is the most gross, like white feminism.
Yeah.
I mean, but fits that
crawl.
character to a T. Like,
yeah,
she's from an era when there was no non-white feminism. Like that's all there was. Barely even that.
I had to make my own Atlantic Passage. Oh, yeah. It's really messed up.
It really is. Yeah. Especially because she is American. The character is
right. American.
She's returning to her home.
Yeah. And you think about James Cameron writing it, and it's like, oh, God, why did no one else read this?
I totally buy that from a 100-year-old lady. But... There is a question of, does he need to be American for any reason? Could they not just let Kate Winslet be British? Like, wouldn't that have been fine?
Yeah, it probably would have.
Although I know Cameron really, really wanted them to be American, and
is he just sort of populism?
Almost cast Christian Bale as as Jack, but didn't want two Brits playing two Americans. It was already enough to have Winslet, so...
Well, I had always heard that the second choice for Jack was Matthew McConaughey, which strikes me as a touch too American. Like Texan is like not what I want from Jack either. Although, all right, let's talk about Jack.
Okay,
Leonardo DiCaprio, like biggest star-making performance in history. Here's my hot take. I think he's actually really good in the role, and also just fundamentally miscast in the role.
Miscast?
Yes,
miscast. This is
There's a way to make this work that I think also makes Zane work, but that the Jack character as he appears on the page should be sort of a blue collar guy, a little rough around the edges. There is not a rough edge. There's not an edge to be seen anyway.
No,
he is the
street.
softest of soft boys.
I disagree. I think he's a kid from Wisconsin who made his way to Paris to pursue the artist life. So like. He is
working on tramp steamers, according to him.
I think he's rough enough.
And he's an outdoor kid, according to himself. I just think the part where like Billy Zane and other people are taken aback by like, oh, how extraordinary! You could almost pass for a gentleman, and it's like, no,
He looks like little Lord Fauntleroy. Yes.
Yeah, he could totally pass for in the Tuxedo Tales. It's you cannot quite pass as a street urchin. Like,
well, I buy it, especially because I had Gilbert Grape in my head, where he was low class, and yeah.
He can do low class.
I think Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet are like the two of the things that actually work about this movie.
Many would agree. Yes.
Yes. And I think he does. I think he does work. It's an interesting subcategory for me of people who are good in roles for which they are not right for fundamentally.
I got to disagree with this, man. I know he's not street. I know, but more important than that, he is a dream boy. He is a beautiful hunk, and in sort of a soft way. He is not.
Is he a hunk? Yeah, he's a beautiful twink.
It's the 90s hunk that was soft. It was like very like
Yeah, he's a manic pixie dream boy.
Floppy haired boy.
Floppy hair, yeah. The Edward Furlong floppy hair that popularized 7 years earlier.
Having all the upper class characters react to them as if he is a stinky mud boy. It's so incongruous with how he looks and sounds at all points that I think, look, again, I think this still works within the movie. It's an interesting thing to me that sometimes it's come up in a couple of episodes. I think the last one would be Gary Oldman in Mank. Like, not giving a bad performance, quite good. I just don't think he was right for what that character is supposed to be at all.
That's the only time anyone has compared DiCaprio in Titanic to Gary Oldman in Mank, by the way.
This is my gift to all of you. The way I think it still manages to work is also the way that the Zane performance works, is that this is, because of the framing device, this is explicitly a recounting. It is an unreliable narrative story to a degree. So we're getting Rose's like distorted view of this manic pixie dream boy that she has been thinking about for the last 85 years, but only knew for 2 days. And like, are you really buying that this street kid from 1912 made through all those 2 days of romance without ever using a slur? Like, probably not, but you don't need to put that in this movie because this is her idealized picture
of this
boy.
Yes.
And her, unidealized ogre version of the fiance that she was trying to escape from. And that's why her mother and the upper class twits are all especially twitty.
I mean, yes,
you can buy that or not, but it's what
everyone's a little bit of a caricature because she's retelling them as like this idealized version.
I buy that.
And it's also kind of explains why she's the only character who's kind of got an interior life in some ways, that she is sort of central to a lot of things that are going on. Obviously there's some screenwriting magic happening there, but it is a sort of a reverie, the whole thing, clearly about memory. And I don't know how literally that is what was intended, and it becomes melodrama and becomes sort of, maudlin in its worst moments, and kind of overly presentational romantic when it's doing it well. But yeah, if you take it as
and overtly racist when Fabrizio was on screen.
Well, sure, and he was the most Italian boy I ever saw. he's a Mario brother in this.
Yes. I was about to mention Chef Boyardee, but okay, yeah, Mario brother.
Yeah. And Declan, is the Irish kid Declan? Is that his name? He feels. Is he?
I think it's actually Tommy Ryan. Is that what it's called?
Oh, okay. I just spiritually Declan. Okay. Okay. Yeah. It's not. I feel like if he had more screen time, he'd be just as powerful as Fabrizio. I believe.
Oh yeah, the caricature.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy who plays Andrews, like the ship designer, his Irish accent is pretty close to a Fabrizio version of an Irish accent.
It's a bit muted compared to
Fabrizio's a high bar.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. Fabrizio, yeah. Like, I think he ends up falling off a lifeboat because he just keeps gesturing with his fingers together instead of holding onto the sides. Am I misremembering this?
Yeah, it's definitely playing very hard into these like stereotypes of like the Irish with their Irish hands built the ship, and the Swedes are over there being Swedish, and
Right.
yeah, definitely leaning too hard into that.
Well, it's so broad. It's, like, the rich people are having a snooty dinner, and it doesn't look like much fun, especially compared to those Irish step dancing people in steerage. They know how to have a good time because they're noble. And
and anytime it veers into that melodrama, that's the way that it still manages to work for me, is that I just say, oh, okay, this is Rose telling people a story, and it's filtered through decades, and maybe, just a skosh of dementia.
Yeah,
Whatever.
I've never thought about it that way, but it is like a nice, generous interpretation to just be like, oh, well, it's an old lady just exaggerating in her story. But also, like, why aren't they more skeptical for that reason? Because my mom is in her 60s and makes up 80% of what she's saying. I can't imagine in her 80s she will not be making up a majority of stories. So.
They're just trying to clam for an actual piece of intelligence to use on to find this diamond.
It becomes clear that they're like, just let her get the story out. She could die at any minute. Hopefully by the end of it we know where to find the diamond.
Well, we get swept away in the romance of the story, like all of America did in the late 90s. Like, it happened.
It happened to Paxton. It happened to us.
It happened to that big hairy nerd. Like, eventually we cut back and everybody has forgot about the diamond. It's just all horned up about the sketching scene.
It's very different if they had I wish that they had just not shown the scene at all. Just all Gloria Stewart recounting it. Just.
Just thinking of that. Do you remember the Community Dungeons and Dragons episode that they eventually pulled from
of course
syndication for blackface?
Yeah.
But there's a part where it's just Alison Brie like pantomiming the sex scene as she's whatever. We can cut that out. It doesn't. It's a purely visual joke about a completely different topic. Anyway. So should we talk about Winslet a little bit? If we're,
of course,
always talk about Winslet.
Yeah, best performance in the movie by several hands, I would say.
She is perfection.
And if you separate like the character from Kate Winslet, like I don't think Rose is not a likable person. Like, we shouldn't like Rose, right?
I don't know. Well, I have mixed feelings about that. I mean, from the jump, I don't want to like her when she's making the slave ship.
Slavery.
It's a rough intro. Yeah.
And just to even say that, it really, really sucks. But she acknowledges at a certain point that, she understands that it's inconceivable that somebody with such a luxurious life should be as miserable as she is. Mm-hmm. And because they set up the parameters of why she's in these circumstances, I actually give her a lot of leeway, because like, it's not just her life that depends on her giving into this world.
Yeah.
It's her family.
The scene with her mom goes a long way to, because there is that question looming over of, it's always an issue with these like love triangles that are drawn very broadly is, well, but if the villain suitor, or like, that she has to leave is really this terrible, then eventually I start thinking less of you as a character for being with him in the first place. But the scene with the mom and the corset, classic, corset tightening scene, goes such a long way to say, oh, she's been pressured into doing this for her mother more than herself, and like, not just to make her happy, but to like keep her, safe and fed.
Mm-hmm.
The mother is pitched at such a like the evil stepmother from Cinderella kind of tone, though. Like, she has these dagger eyes, and she never smiles, and she's venomous the whole time. So even that, I'm kind of just like, well, she's a hostage of her family in this case. She has no warmth or regret about abandoning that at the end of the film, because
But she makes the statement that that it is to keep them fed. Like, I agree that she doesn't express warmth, but the line that, of course, it's unfair because we're women, and that is enough for her. Like, that is the reason why we have to do this. It makes it make a lot more sense to me, and and it makes it even more understandable that she's so cold throughout, because she has to be in order to survive.
Yeah, she turned it all off. Okay, yeah. I mean, it's still, it's on the level of every other character that isn't Rose in this. But yes,
she's
a good
still
point.
a dick.
Yeah,
yeah, but I buy it.
If you have to be this way to survive, that's one thing. But be nice to Molly Brown.
Yeah, for real. Yeah. Did Molly Brown, like, historically, she did more stuff, right? Like,
funny you ask.
Please, yes, please. Like,
no, I only know a little bit about Molly Brown because I went and toured her house the last time I was in Denver, because I'm that much of a dork.
Neato.
And it was a gorgeous house, but she did not care for the name Molly, and she was not called the unsinkable Molly Brown until after she died. But most of her money is like from her dad owning, I think he like owned railroads, or steal something.
So she is not remotely the character that has been has propagated through history. Okay.
Yeah, she's not she's not like
salt of the earth,
a leper of society. She's definitely mainstream society, like old money.
Yeah, it turns out no matter how far back you go, the like blue collar billionaire is never a thing that has ever existed.
The book I read this book when I was in like 5th grade. And I've seen The Unsinkable Molly Brown with Tallulah Bankhead. From what I understand is she had a reputation for being just brassier than the
I think she was like slightly
woman of her class,
more outspoken. Yeah, I think she just spoke up a little bit more.
Did I somehow create in my mind that she led some of the boats back to save people, and that was not shown in the movie?
Yeah, I mean, that's The Unsinkable Molly Brown is all about her on her lifeboat.
Right. That's why I'm thinking.
I don't know if that's
because in the movie she's like, "We should do something," and they're like, "No, shut up," and that's the last we see of her.
Should we talk about any of the other supporting characters before we like get farther in?
Certainly.
I mean, we've all taken our shots at Fabrizio,
of course.
Well, maybe. Maybe not all of us. Meg, if you want to do your accent work, now's the time.
Oh no, you will never get me recorded doing that. Sorry.
Fine.
Don't try to cancel me, Al.
What's the creepy
the valet
henchman?
The
Lovejoy,
the incredibly overnamed Spicer Lovejoy. Yes.
Yes. God, what a name!
I did find it really fun to pause and actually see what some of the characters' names were. Like that, I didn't know Cal was short for Caledon Hockley.
I knew that. Yeah,
Caledon Hockley. Yes,
Caledon. I mean, you need several syllables more than Cal for like that level of snooty aristocracy.
That's true.
He's probably got to be at least the 4th, right? Like.
They should have made a point of that. Oh, well. I think we know, though. Spicer Lovejoy. I think this is my favorite supporting performance in the film. I think he's great. And I think he does this because he doesn't have much dialogue. They don't give him much to actually say. He has, 5 lines in this film, maybe. And this is like a really good actor. You could give him villain lines and he would nail them for sure. But like, I like that we know nothing about him. He's just a guy who's just kind of like, you know what? I can see they're in love. I think I'm going to fuck that up. I think I'm going to fuck that. Yeah. I'm going to fuck this up for them. And just pursues that. And almost like the Terminator. It's a lot of fun. I think he's he's an enjoyable henchman. And the only problem is he needed a better death sequence.
He did need a better death sequence, but it is so important that he brings some competency to Zane's villainy.
Yes,
because otherwise Zane would just be tripping over his own shoelaces the entire movie and would never be able to threaten a fly. But because he's a great heavy that does he just disappear kind of perfunctorily from the movie later on, unfortunately. But at that point, we're almost overloaded with overwrought death scenes. But
but this really skimps on villain deaths because of that. You would think there'd be some
Well,
here.
I think this is an important a thematic point that the movie lands pretty effectively through, without naming explicitly the way that Cameron normally does. The not getting a good villain death plays into the class divide, which is the ultimate villain of this, like we said, and that is the backdrop of the whole Titanic tragedy, is that they drowned all the poor people basically, and some of the rich people survived. And the way that plays out,
Mm-hmm.
the way that plays out on screen is that some of the bad guys, the Calendon Hockley the fourth or whatever we decided it was, gets away, and not a single one of the lower class characters we spend time with lives, up to and including Jack. Maybe at the end of this we can get into the controversy about whether Jack could have or should have lived, but for the class struggle commentary work, the rich girl lives and the poor guy drowns. That's the story of Titanic writ large.
I think Fabrizio makes it.
No, he does not. He gets the giant smokestack
Definitely
dropped
I
on
think
him.
he goes into that pipe and comes out on the Mushroom Kingdom side.
Oh,
Yeah!
bravo. Son of
But
a
yeah,
bitch.
like
I
every
spotted it right as
single-
you were going into the pipe, and oh no. All right, well
every
played, sir.
single lower class character that we get to see more than once or gets a name, you also see them essentially die, like that little baby Irish girl.
That's the roughest
not
one.
even names. Yeah, God, the Jeanette
Cora.
Goldstein and her kids.
Her name is
Yeah.
Cora.
Her name is Cora.
Oh yeah, no, wait, is she Jeanette Goldstein's daughter too? I didn't even connect those dots.
I think
I don't
so.
know.
I don't know, but her Jeanette Goldstein's kids going down is rough. That's, every scene with her, you're just like, oh, those kids are gonna die. That's her entire presence in this
I
whole
forgot.
movie. Mm-hmm. Oh,
But-
as soon as they get the rich folks on the boats, they'll be coming around for us. Like, oh, no,
You know
they
what
won't.
I thought this time that I don't think I've ever thought about before watching is the chef that's the pastry chef that's on the back of the boat with them. Is he significant? Have we seen him before? Even?
Not in the movie. Not in the movie. I have this. My wife explained this to me.
Did you
Apparently,
see it?
this is a real guy. This guy was real. He was the chef who was on the prow of the boat, and he survived. One of the few people who survived going into the ocean because he was so drunk that his body temperature didn't go as low as everyone else's.
Or was it
What?
already?
Is that true?
Wow.
According to my wife while watching it, and I
So
believe
he's one of the eyewitness accounts.
yes,
That does ring a bell now. I
But
think
he's-
I read that in a listicle somewhere on
How
the
have I
internet.
never heard that?
it's a pretty good one.
That's crazy.
I mean, it explains why he's featured, even if they don't explain it in the film.
Yeah, that's good Titanic nerd stuff. Like Cameron, of course.
Just like the hotel or the room numbers.
Mhm.
What are the room numbers? I missed this part when we were pre-recording.
Once
Yeah.
again, according to the Amazon Prime trivia, the room numbers that Rose and Cal and team have were the room numbers that JP Morgan had booked for the trip, but then JP Morgan canceled, backed out. So somebody else was in those rooms, but it's just an interesting little tidbit that Cameron decided that they would have JP Morgan's rooms
To run with. Yeah, I mean, he's very meticulous in how, you can poke fun at his writing because he works in archetypes more than he does like nuanced character studies, but the nuts and bolts are really strong. Like he establishes why Jack's not on the manifest, that
Mhm.
Bill Paxton and company have never heard of this guy because he won it in a hand of poker. He may not have a great grasp of how poker works. That's fine. But, in that opening poker hand, Fabrizio wins a pocket knife as part of the pot that the tickets are in, that he later uses to cut the ropes that are tipping the lifeboat over. And it's just, plant and payoff stuff that is all throughout this, everything in this first half. All like the featured extras, like we said, may not know their
Right.
names, but we're going to see them in a drowning sequence later. And
We'll
it's going to hit a little bit harder.
perish.
Yes.
Oh boy, that stuff. I mean, are we? We're kind of going along here. Should we talk about? Are we at the?
Let's talk about the romance because we're kind of
Yeah.
getting into
Oh,
the
right,
drowning
that.
portions, but we
Yeah,
haven't talked about the romance.
Well, first we should start with the romance between Jack and Fabrizio and
Right.
the king of the world moment.
Like Fabrizio is so featured at the beginning of this movie, and we follow him in his demise. But for 2 hours of the movie, you don't see
He's
him
just
at
gone.
all. He's just not there.
I think they knew to get him off camera pretty, as much as they could.
Oh.
I bet he's all over those deleted scenes.
Just in the background.
Yeah, you're editing this again. God, can we just use a little less Fabrizio in this? My God.
No, I mean, and another like play and payoff thing, I guess, is they actually kind of put a name on it that like Rose says to Jack, this is where we first met, and that it starts off with her trying to jump off the back of the boat, and then they end up trying to hang on to the back of the boat as long as possible.
He did that. She said that.
I have the stupidest mind.
Well, she goes from
worm.
wanting to die to wanting to live. It's
It's the In Bruges character arc. I had the stupidest thing for this movie that I've just had in my mind for years, which was that part, I'll jump, and he says, "No, you won't." For some reason, I have no idea. My mind had filled in that the following thing he said was, "You don't have the guts." I don't know why I thought this, but I was really surprised when he didn't say it. Like he was Riggs trying to talk a jumper off the building or something. Yeah, no, he doesn't. He's much better at handling that than.
That's the McConaughey version of the character. Yeah. Leo would never nag a girl like that.
I think it's a really beautiful scene. That's the scene that I was like, all right, I'm in, because there was something about, I was an over emotional, angsty teen, and seeing this woman just absolutely rejecting the expectations that society is putting upon her to the point that she doesn't know what else to do. That's heavy shit. And I think they handled it really beautifully.
Yeah, he's and he really, this character is written. I mean, Leo in this is written to be exactly what she needs. This is the Manic Pixie Dream Boy thing. This is, I mean, and it's the romance of it too, though. I don't want to be dismissive. I mean, like we said, it's all kind of within the context of her reverie, but his perfection, his the way he handles every situation ideally.
Well, and he's never
hard to pull off.
Trying to rescue her because she's helpless. I mean, even when she is dangling off the ship, he's like, "You pull yourself up," and she does. He's just there to witness her and just validate her.
Well, I mean, he does some saving of her in the back half, but one thing I think is great about the back half is how it's sort of back and forth of who's saving who at different points. And, Cameron's pretty, he's got a thing compared to at least most of his contemporary male action directors, much stronger hand at doing female heroes. And
right.
That's certainly part of it. That Rose is as active in saving Jack throughout this movie as he is with her. Even as he is incredibly idealized, like you said, in so many ways. He's articulate about his sort of, lower class philosophy of joie de vivre in a way that I'm not sure I buy, but I buy as Rose has backfilled some of the finer points of this soliloquy he's given over the intervening decades.
So, Gwen, how old were you when you saw this in theaters?
I was a sophomore in high school. So critical. 14, 15. Yeah. 15.
Okay. I was 9. So I wasn't quite at my boy stage yet.
Oh.
Yeah. I was deep in my...
Yeah. So that's a very different perspective for me, as the thinking of how this first Leo DiCaprio crush, shapes your dream boy scenarios going forward.
Especially because I had already seen Gilbert Grape, and I had already seen Romeo and Juliet, and I was in. Yeah. He had me. I was in.
He was in Family Ties too, right?
I equal parts, if not actually more so, in for Kate.
Yeah.
Because also Sense and Sensibility.
I think the main love love knowledge I took away from Titanic was that you could use ballet at parties to impress boys.
Mhm.
That was my big takeaway.
That is one of my favorite, like, not believable.
Random moments.
Yeah, like her party trick.
Yeah, not that the on toe thing is not impressive, but just that these, lower class
You
Irish.
think you're so tough? Can you do this?
And I picture
don't
all
think
this
that would fly in that room.
right. Not that they could do it. Just I don't think. I
know
think
if
they'd all
they
be like,
would've
"Well, I
noticed."
don't know. I never tried. Probably." Like, I think would be their response, and then they would find out they didn't. But instead, everybody's just immediately like, "Oh my god!"
It took
Toes.
me.
Also, after it turns out that both Rose and Jack can tap dance.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yes.
Quite so.
Soft shoe.
Well, I think all poor people can. Is sort of the,
Yeah.
I mean, they're so noble. They're so talented. But
Because they're
I'm not
perfect
slamming
young
the
lovers.
poor. I'm talking about
No,
all.
you're.
But like it's. So here's the thing about the romance in this. Like, we've talked about Cameron and his strong female protagonists many times as we've been talking about the James Cameron films, but there is always, not always, but somewhat an element of like, hey guys, I don't know about you, but there's nothing sexier than a strong woman. There's an element of that.
Absolutely.
To Linda Hamilton or and certainly Jamie Lee Curtis or
Up
whatever.
till now, it's a woman firing a machine gun.
Yeah. This movie, and this is not. I mean, it's striking in this movie. This is all about sort of a female perspective, what a female character wants, female pleasure, a female's ideal. There's not much for a guy to hang on to in this. And I think that's why this became sort of a flashpoint film in this way. It is a movie intended to appeal to women by James Cameron, and it is explicitly that. It is the best version of that. And it is it's about her being horny for him, and he's sort of the one without interiority.
All of the sexual moments, she's taking the lead always.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. She literally puts his hand on her boob.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's
and
a
she's
perfect
the one
gentleman.
who says
he's
to draw me like one of your French girls.
Yeah.
And there's some implication that she is not a virgin. Just so it's interesting, like if you imagine what her experiences would be given Cal, it's really
Cal, right? I mean, it wouldn't have been Cal. That's
no,
my range.
Cal's angry that they haven't.
He says,
done,
"I
right?
expected you to come to me last night," and as if that's something that she has done or would do. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've noticed that Cameron is very careful about not having them touch ever. Like whenever they're entering in a group, you would think he'd be escorting her. He's escorting her mom. Like he is anathema to her sexually in this. And and I mean, I don't know. I think that's part of why this role may have actually hurt Billy Zane's career, despite being so delightful in it. Like he's, I think it limits the kind of actor he can be after he plays this role. Maybe, I don't know. I think he just deserved better jobs after this. He's so good in it, but yeah, he's playing unappealing here, sexually unappealing.
Definitely.
And for a handsome man like Billy Zane, I mean, it's he's doing Gaston stuff essentially.
Right.
The handsome guy that you want nothing to do with. Yeah.
And there's just something so beautiful and appealing about going from that man
to
Jack, who wants to just gaze upon you and talk about your beautiful hands. And
he's so free and so polite.
And he and the whole bow of the ship moment. Wait, bow, stern. Wait, am I getting
I think it's a bow. I think it's a bow.
Is that the bow?
The stern is the back end.
Got it. Thank you. Oh wow, there's visuals on.
I'm looking at it right now.
When they're on the bow of the ship. Yeah, like he gives her this moment of freedom that was the moment in the movie theater as a teenager that I was like, maybe I hate this movie, both the King of the World and the I'm fine, Jack. Those were the moments that I did not care for. However, I can appreciate, especially if we look at this as like 80 bazillion year old Rose's POV,
Mhm.
that he gave her the opportunity to experience freedom in a way that she'd never had.
Yeah.
I think, it's beautiful.
I mean, yes, it's for an audience. It's for like, you know, I doubt there's a lot of woo-hooing in the golden age, you know, like
Right.
it's playing big moments for trailers or for Oscar reels or for, you know, all that stuff, and it's so effective at that. But I don't know, that's of a piece with all of this though. It's the big melodrama movie. It's the one that goes for it, and oh man, it's amazing that it lands as well as it does. Frankly, with how big this plays.
We can make fun of it all day long, but do you? I don't know. Do you want, or is there any reason to do the small, subtle version of Titanic?
I don't even know what it would be. Like, I don't know how you tell this story without melodrama, or you know, I guess you could do a pure disaster film version of it. But I mean,
now I want like
this movie
Sofia
does that.
Coppola's Titanic, you know.
But see, this is what this movie does, and why I think maybe what you were overstating a little bit earlier, saying that this is all like it's for women, and everything, because yes, it has a full movie of that period romance, you know, proto Downton Abbey, upstairs downstairs stuff. And then it has a full movie of disaster movie.
Yeah.
For the boys in the audience.
I time marked it. The action doesn't even start until an hour and 45 minutes into the movie.
Yes, an hour and 45 minutes. It's a full film of just the romance stuff. And then we get to the you know, which so much of what I remember from this movie in the 20-year gap between viewings was all the romance stuff and the zane of it all, and the king of the world, and
that's why
that sort of
big, right? I mean, that's
right. I mean that is the stuff that is memorable. Outside of like maybe the one shot of the guy bouncing off the propeller, like is the other most iconic thing. But
I didn't feel that way. I felt personally like way too much was made of moments like the hand or the king of the world, or like the hyper romantic moments. Even just the fact that the diamond became something that everybody was getting fake ones of or whatever. All that stuff I found, all the stuff that society seemed to obsess over and over and over was the stuff that I didn't enjoy about the movie. I was much more into like the little
propeller guy.
Absolutely. Propeller guy.
So can I ask you a question about VHS tapes?
Yeah.
For the Titanic VHS tape, were you a person who put in tape 1 or tape 2 if you were watching the movie? Or do you mainly think about watching VHS number 2?
I'm probably too much like John in that I need to watch the whole thing from start to finish.
It would drive me insane.
I was telling Al, I pretty much exclusively watched the VHS tape 1 of the movie for most of my viewings of it. Yeah.
That interesting.
I would stop after the party scene.
Huh. No, I want to watch people wading through ice cold water.
You're not fitting my prejudices here, I'm afraid. I thought the girls would like all the romance.
John laid out a perfectly good stereotype. No. Well, so this is the thing. I remembered all that, and I went through the first 2 nights of my Titanic rewatch and was like, you know, this is sort of the cheesy fun that I remember it being. It was kind of fun, sort of filing away mental notes of things to make fun of and whatnot. And then I went to what's the sinking portion of the evening, and I don't know if that was a weird day for me or something, but holy fuck, it wrecked me, you guys. Like just. I was so unprepared. I thought I remembered this so well, and it was emotionally devastating. It's
interesting. Okay.
In a way that I can't think of another movie that has done this to me recently.
It becomes such a good movie too. Like the things that James Cameron are so good at, like the lights flickering when they're like in the like water-filled hallway and like stuff like that. Like those moments are so good.
Well, part of it, there's 2 things I think that are like personal to me. One is that I think drowning isn't a special phobia of mine, and drowning in an enclosed space, especially for some reason, is worse than the idea of being in the open sea, like where there's a chance to tread water or something. But the idea of being in one of those rooms and just as it fills up is like gut level horrifying for me. But I think that was true when I was a teenager too. And what's different is for me now, as opposed to being a teenager, is obviously I have children, and so I was more. I guess it sort of awoke the Helen Lovejoy in me of won't somebody think of the children? Not because I'm like horrified that like how like I did not remember there being this many children that are explicitly going to drown in this freezing water in this movie, and
they show a lot of kids throughout the movie.
Yeah, it was really upsetting to me. That's what's like I can't. How dare you do this or anything? But it was just like there's something in me now, I guess, where something like that happens, and I go, well, okay, now fuck the rest of the movie. Like, why aren't we just focusing on this kid and their problems? Like, this is like, like, oh, but you know, at least they got to bang into a car. Like, this poor kid's crying for his dad, the little German kid or whatever in the hallway. It's like this.
Oh, that guy gets wrecked. Oh man.
Yeah, but so does the kid. That's the terrible.
Yes.
Like
that tidal wave just hits him. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, it hurt me.
There is something
deeply
painful anytime you try to imagine yourself in a situation where you know you have about half an hour to live. And especially if you have to consider that you're with vulnerable people.
Thinking about that in the context of I have half an hour to live with my beautiful rich girlfriend, like that, there's a romanticism to that still, obviously. And now thinking I have half an hour to live with my child who also has half an hour to live, and I have to figure out how do I prepare my child for death. Like that, it would. I had forgotten all about that angle of it if I ever noticed it 25 years ago.
Oh, that's the part that had me weeping in the theater. Yeah.
That's the part that my mom covered my eyes for when I was.
The montage of people facing death that occurs here is pretty remarkable stuff. Pretty spectacular stuff. They are. It didn't work as well for me. It's really
Say
good.
More about that.
Okay, I think I've always wondered this about this movie. I don't know why I'm at arm's length from this movie, and I think maybe that I watched it all at once instead of over 3 nights may have hurt for me because I'm just sort of worn down a little by the 2-hour mark, and I
would have thought that would help if anything, but
it's such melodrama though. I'm not really invested in these characters because they're they're pantomime.
Okay. Maybe that is part of it. That for me, the big tragic death stuff was removed from the melodrama romance stuff enough. The teenage, whatever.
I mean,
that it hit harder. Maybe
Jeanette Goldstein. All those are like, oh, that's rough. The old couple holding each other in the room. The floods. That stuff. Those are just images, and of course, those get you. But then we're back to Calden Hockley. Chasing him with a gun, through us, I hope you enjoy your time together, and I'm kind of like, well, I'm not really worried about this, I'm not really invested in this. And everyone is drawn so large. The incredibly noble poor and the incredibly
not those
insidious rich are it's so broad that I don't know. I'm at arm's length. And yes, there are the moments, a new parent, all that stuff. Yes, but I don't know. I always feel like I'm going to cry when I watch this movie, and it doesn't happen. And I'm generally a very easy mark for crying in movies. So I don't know. Maybe something's wrong with me. Maybe I don't know.
I don't cry at movies, but this had me choking at during times. And again, none of it is the Jack and Rose of it.
Right.
It was just incidental characters that I had completely forgotten about. I remember the old couple and the captain, but I had totally blanked on Jeanette Goldstein telling her kids a story as the room fills with water. And I'm just like,
that's rough.
That is a weird, like poetic kind of beautiful image that is about to turn absolutely horrifying and excruciatingly painful for the next couple minutes.
Yeah. The Jack and Rose stuff only gets me at the very, very end, that the sense of like a heavenly reunion.
Oh, that to me plays as farce.
No, they got me.
No, that doesn't get me either, because so she's greeted in heaven by the guy she had sex with in a car once, but she doesn't see her husband that she was married to presumably for decades.
Well, she shouldn't have gone back to Titanic. She's trapped on the ghost ship now with the rest of them.
Is it because she died at sea?
Yes.
She's stuck on the Titanic.
Yes, she died in Poseidon's jurisdiction. So,
She's trapped there now.
No, honestly, the way that works for me is I don't interpret it as her dying. I just interpret it as she's having a dream on a boat, having just told the story about him for the first time in 100 years. And so
Which
that's
is
nice. And
good enough for me as well to make me cry.
Yeah, that's fine.
Is it the fact that Cora's standing in the background on the stairs with them? Yeah, that gets me too.
It's that they're all there.
Yeah.
Fabrizio is not. I noticed.
Fabrizio is not.
No, he got pancaked. Well, I guess, or he's
he's in the mud. He's fighting Bowser. Yes,
he's in World 6-2, still trying to climb the mushrooms. All right. Do we have any other sinking stuff? I think we have to address the big controversy of could Jack have fit on the door?
Just show 10 seconds of him trying and it sinking down. No.
Yes, they do.
He doesn't properly try. It's not long enough. It's not clear enough that like this will kill us both. So
it is there. He tries to get on, it swamps, and he just makes a decision that he cannot also be on there.
Barely.
It's visually there.
Barely.
I think, I'm on your side on this, Al. I feel like they do enough to show me that he and like throughout the end scenes, he's kind of accepted that he's going to die like however many times by this point. So he's right. Like he doesn't need much to be like, yeah, no, I'm just going to stay in this water and she's going to survive.
Yeah. I don't know. It's so hard to go back to, when I first saw this, because it's such a fait accompli that Jack is going to die at the end. And it seems like, I don't know, maybe they could have come up with a visual kind of version of this. Jack has to do something to sacrifice himself to save Rose that didn't bother everyone so much, that did not beg questions or say, well, he could have got on the door, but narratively it was like, well, yeah, of course that's exactly the ending we're headed towards. Yeah.
This is horseshit. It's not just narratively, visually. They show him trying to climb on, and it's not working. It's there. This is the height of internet bullshit. Cinema sins.
Why are people so
blah blah blah?
So upset about this?
It's internet bullshit because I was absolutely having this feeling in the theater in 1997. I think to some extent they just could have made it a harder try. Or the other argument that people were making was like, what if they took turns? Like they're both already wet, so it's not like
that's a very romantic sequence. Yeah, of them like counting down. Also, the other reason why I don't think this matters at all is because it's not as though being on that door meant that like you were definitely going to live. Like,
fair.
Like they established, like there's plenty of people floating, like that don't drown, but only I think she said 7 people survived, including her, that went in outside of lifeboats. And
the drunk guy, yeah.
So he could have got out and got on. They could have taken turns, and he still died, and she still lived, or vice versa. It could have been either which way,
right?
Whatever. But for me, my whole thing is just that they show him try. It's not enough, I guess.
I mean, it wasn't. The proof is in the pudding. It bugs people.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
I also didn't love the just the cheesy repetition of the "I'll never let go, Jack." Yeah, that didn't. I didn't like it, especially when she doesn't let go and then his freaking hand breaks off.
Yeah, the sound is upsetting in that.
It's cool.
Cool. I love that. That's Cameron the romantic running into Cameron the deep sea nerd. It's like, well, it would have to break off like the T1000 soaked in liquid nitrogen. Like, there's no other way it would work. Of course, it would sound gross.
Well, I mean, that has to be a heartbreaking moment, of course.
In terms of his entire repertoire, I find it really interesting. One, that he went from Terminator 2?
True Lies. Yeah.
Okay, that's better. But in general, like those
Than Terminator
movies.
2?
No.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't saying True Lies is better than Terminator 2,
Okay.
although I personally prefer it.
Cute.
No,
Okay.
just those movies.
We don't have time for that sidebar.
True, yeah, let's not. But True Lies still falls within the much more specifically action / sci-fi. And then there's this, and it was so expensive. And it was like the turning point for him in how he seems to budget.
This was a huge turning point for him in just about every way. I mean, he just became, the king of the world stuff. I mean, by the way, that never bugged me. Never bugged me at all that he said he was king of the world because he was quoting his movie. I think it would have been funny if he wasn't. If he just said,
I just think it's a dumb line. I don't think
it's not a great line.
Yeah, it's not a good line. It's cheesy, but I don't care. Like,
right.
I don't like, oh, how dare, like, yeah. Whatever.
I did choose it in the movie, and the fact that he did it again was just like, find better words.
He did a bad reading of it too, if I recall. He was just sort of half committed. Yeah. I'm the king of the world.
Oh yeah, it was so awkward.
Even he knew it wasn't a great idea. But also it's like he sort of came by it honestly in that like the knives were out for this movie before it came out. Like the stories were all out there. I remember that as a kid hearing about like the takes were pre-written about how Titanic the movie was going to be this enormous historical hubristic disaster the way that the Titanic the ship was. Like it they wrote themselves that it was going to follow the story of the boat exactly. But he made a Titanic that actually sailed all the way to the other side of the ocean. And so, I guess he had a right to, I suppose, I don't care that he was rubbing it in the critics' faces or whatever, but it's a bad line reading of a not great line.
Do you think if like this movie were made today, it would be franchised and like there would somehow be a Titanic 2?
No, I think it would
story or something like Marvel situation.
I think we do rip-offs, which is what they did.
Yeah.
I could see them doing like a very Orange is the New Black, where every episode we're getting a backstory to a different random person on this ship,
I mean, I'm watching 1899 on Netflix, and the first episode, I'm just like, oh, look at all these Titanic archetypes. It is about a Gilded Age ship crossing the Atlantic, and it's just like, yep, you got the unhappy, there's the unhappy couple, with the arranged marriage. You got the poor people. You got like it's all the archetypes from Titanic are just in it, and it's a weird sci-fi show, but it's just like, well, it's a ship movie, so we got to have all these characters, that have been defined by Titanic, essentially, even if they are archetypes going in.
I'm this is also bullshit. I'm interested in learning that because if you die at sea, then the ghosts at sea are the ones who will haunt your afterlife.
Yes.
Yeah,
I want that show.
Sort of
that season 2 of Titanic,
is that what
the miniseries.
You get like Davy Jones from the Pirates of the Caribbean. It's that kind. Oh, do you fear death? Fuck, shut up, man. Okay.
No, I mean, is there any other way to do the Titanic story? I guess, does it need to be gigantic and bombastic and kind of hubristic itself? And
yes, I think so.
I think it does. And it's telling the story.
It just doesn't need Bill Paxton.
So it is. It's a full disaster movie and a full romantic movie, and it's really a story about class struggle, which I guess is what it comes down to. It struck me here, like, again, how every single underclass character we meet ends up drowning, and how that's weirdly like the most damning piece of class criticism that comes across in this whole movie. That is very unsubtle about that, but it's also like just the idea of why did they need a third class on this ship at all? It's a luxury steamer. Why did they need it's almost like they needed it because fabulous wealth means nothing if you don't have anybody to lord it over. If you don't have a contrast to the rats in steerage, then nobody would maybe give a shit about the brandy and the cigars in the upper and the chandeliers in the grand ballroom.
I mean, based on human nature, I think that's probably exactly what it was, not just in the movie, like in, the actual Titanic.
Yeah, and in real life, like the steerage, the people in steerage were physically so separated, like they couldn't get out of any of that section because it was created that even if like the ship had made it safely, they wouldn't be able to get out of that section of the ship.
They had the gates
And
there. Those
yeah, all of like the lifeboats were only accessible from first and second class. Like that's just a real fact of why like only like a third of the people on the ship.
And it wasn't any of the steerage passengers.
Yeah, exactly.
Part of what they have to brag about is the number of people they could hold on this massive ship.
Mm-hmm.
And there's only so many rich people. You need masses of plebs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You can get like twice, 3 times as many if you just shove them into bunks downstairs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they got to pay.
Never mind.
They got to pay something, some pittance.
Yeah, but I can't imagine is that how they were paying for. Nah, it doesn't matter. Whatever. Like, the point is, it's a big, giant movie, and we did a big, long episode about it, and we could go on quite a bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this.
I mean, is this the great romance of all time in cinema? I mean, it's. I think a lot of people would say so. It's too broad for me though, I have to say. And
and it's also 3 nights of love, it's the great cruise fling of cinema.
It's the Romeo and Juliet thing. I mean,
Cameron literally sold it as Romeo and Juliet at sea. Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I mean, literally the Leonardo DiCaprio went from playing Romeo in Romeo and Juliet to this.
And funny story, Paul Rudd talked him into taking the part.
Huh?
Paul Rudd's dad is like a Titanic historian. And I think Paul Rudd might have been up for Zane's role.
He played that role. He played that role in Romeo and Juliet.
I'm convinced, Leo.
That's interesting.
It's in the pantheon, maybe it's Mount Rushmore. I don't know what the ultimate romance is, but it's up there. And you're right. The transient nature of it, though, like that's if you're gonna do a romance in a 2-hour movie.
I mean, we were talking about The Abyss recently, and I believe I said it was my favorite romance in a James Cameron movie, and that sounds to me like, in retrospect, entirely like a backhanded slam at Titanic. Like, to say anything other than this is the best Titanic Cameron romance seems like a way to insult Titanic more than saying anything. And I don't know. I don't mean that. I do really like the romance in The Abyss, but it's obviously, it's not this, and not remotely this. This is
very different.
The broad.
It's a type of romance that's pitched a little closer to your age and is a little less common in blockbuster cinema than 2 very pretty 18-year-olds.
Sure. Yes.
And is a little more autobiographical for the filmmaker.
Yes.
And this is a little bit of fantasy. It is very
it's a lot bit.
Do you think the earring was James Cameron's idea or Bill Paxton's idea? Sorry, not to go.
It was the time. It was the time. Harrison Ford.
I think it was Cameron's idea. Because I haven't seen Paxton rocking it in other movies.
I mean, Moulin Rouge comes out like 3 years after this. And that is a film that totally works for me. And it's the same kind of thing. It's the same kind of broad, histrionic romance, practically. And that one...
Star-crossed lovers.
Yeah, now that one I just unabashedly adore. That one makes me cry. And I mean, notably, I think that has a more male perspective as well. I think that might be something to interrogate but about myself. But beyond that, like, I don't know why I can say that one absolutely works for me, and this one is I can kind of respect more than I can truly feel, except for the moments
I
where I'm
feel the
watching
same way
extras.
though. I feel the exact same way. Like I they just don't feel like real people in love to me.
I don't even know if it's the intention that they do. Yeah.
Well, and there's something to me about it that is not like, I don't go into or walk away from the movie feeling like this is a story about Jack and Rose's love as much as it is about what 2 people can bring to one another if they go all in, even if, for a very short period of time, and how much a person can change you. Yeah,
Nice.
it feels
That's
like it
a
is
nice way
very
of
much
looking at it.
Yeah, that is a
about
nice way of
like the
looking at it.
flings that happen in your life that you have to let go of, but will never leave you.
I do think maybe like the ultimate romance in all of cinema is like a question that's too big to have any actual answer to it. But I would say there is a smaller question, maybe a smaller achievement, but is this the best disaster movie ever made? And I would say yes to that.
Yes.
I mean, maybe it's. I mean, that seems like a low bar to clear. I don't.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, they tend to be schlockier.
Yeah.
The only one that I have to be honest and say I don't watch a ton of disaster movies, but I think the only one I can think of that is equivalently good is, and now I'm blanking on the name, the Naomi
Dante's
Watts typhoon. Not
Is that the
Naomi
Impossible?
Tsunami movie?
Yeah,
I haven't
the
seen it.
Thailand
Tsunami
tsunami movie. I forgot what that's called, but
Is Ewan McGregor in that one too?
Yeah, Ewan McGregor and Naomi Watts.
I haven't seen that. Should I see that?
That movie is really good. It's awful.
I had to jump out of that movie. It was too much for me.
Well, you've
See, the ones I was thinking of was, I guess, around Titanic's time or post Titanic, disaster movie has become like synonymous with Roland Emmerich and Independence Day, whatever, 2012 style end of the world stuff. There was a period back in maybe the 70s or so where there were a little more prestige-y. The Towering Inferno or Poseidon Adventure, I think, had a little more.
They're terrible movies, though.
Are they? See, I
hate watching them. They're so boring. I mean, they're essentially Emmerich films just made 20 years before. But
maybe The Impossible and Titanic just get some, like, they feel less schlocky immediately because they're based on true events and not invented disasters.
I mean, we did get, I guess the most obvious, like, immediate follow-up to this, like, ripoff was Pearl Harbor. That exists. They did the shit versions right away. Yeah,
It was really trying.
I know Emmerich really was trying to get the Hindenburg movie to happen after this, and I believe that would have been
That's literally just Skytanic.
Yeah, it is. I think he wanted to do the whole romance, the whole thing. I think it was just be like, this made money, we'll do another, like I do it, and I think that would have been it. But
I want Wes Anderson to direct the Hindenburg movie.
Ooh, that great.
Is a fantastic idea.
Wow,
oh that sounds awesome. Wow,
I'd see it.
So many dogs would burn up on that.
Oh man.
Blimp.
It's the dog room. The dog room's on fire.
No. All right. How do we segue to this board game?
I don't, guys.
Meg brought a prop to show us on the screen here. Can you explain to us what this is?
Okay, so when I was so obsessed with the Titanic that I think this was a Christmas present from someone, but I got a unaffiliated Titanic board game that I played so frequently that the box is falling apart throughout my childhood. And
so cool.
It is just as racist as you probably think it is, just as weird as you probably think it is.
I'm not sure how racist I think it is. Can you? Does the box intact enough to see a copyright date on it?
Yes, it is 1998.
Oh, of course. Is it harder to win if you're Irish or something?
So everybody starts out in second class, but
egalitarian. Okay.
You can end up. So I don't even know how to begin to describe this game. You are assigned like a archetype. Do you want to guess what the archetypes are? You get you get a passport with information about you on it.
Society like Dame.
This is the Jack Dawson version.
Oh sure,
character. I believe his name is Jack O'Malley.
Okay.
He's an Irishman.
And he's the salt of the earth fellow.
He traveled to France and then Ireland before this. Yeah. Born in 1887. So you get like information about your character, and then you basically board the ship and you start to gather your belongings on the ship. So you have to like go pick up your luggage and then get your room key and like all of these things. And whoever's the first person to have all of their stuff, like that indicates that the iceberg has hit.
Oh, sure.
And now you have a clock on the game of like, okay, now you have to start working your way up to the lifeboats, and whoever doesn't make it onto a lifeboat first dies.
Yeah.
So only one winner?
So only one winner.
Survivor.
One of the fun things about the game is that they give you these little bellhop cards, which is a person that you can send back to die for you if you like. It's like a kind of a second life card of like, I don't want to go that far back in the game, so I'm going to give my bellhop.
Take this bellhop,
so I don't have to die.
It's pretty dark.
Take this servant, Poseidon.
Got White Star brand money.
Whet your appetite for my immortal soul.
You can land on different gossip cards where the characters tell you ship gossip.
Oh wow!
Can you use that to get to a lifeboat faster?
Yeah, some of the information they give you is helpful to like get you out of there. But basically, the premise of the game is to have enough money to get all your stuff as quickly as you can.
So it also is about the class system in a way.
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
It's not just about surviving. It's about surviving with all of your belongings.
We really have a United Nations of people also aboard. This is Mr. Buckworthy. He is a millionaire.
Yeah.
For some reason staying in second class. Don't know what that's about. We've got Lucky Lopez, one of the first accented characters. And yes, all the gossip cards do have accents.
Oh.
They're written in patois.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
We've got a Southern Belle. We've got this is Miss Su Yen.
Oh no.
Not good.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Is it progressive if Mr. Yen gets to send back some lower class Irish people to die for him?
Yeah, I guess that's a bright side, I guess.
Is that what counts for progressive in 1912?
Yeah, apparently. So yeah, I played this game pretty much every day with my friend Emily.
Sounds good. This sounds kind of like the I have a board game called Tammany Hall. Sounds similar, which is of course about running early
political machine
18th century New York with corruption, and much of the action of the game is like, doing well, but what if I move the Irish into your neighborhood? That's
not good.
It's a great game.
The little drawing,
probably not referencing any real life deaths either, like directly.
The little drawing of steerage in this game also has rats included.
Oh, good.
Oh, authentic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we should all play this and make a podcast of it.
Indeed.
See how that plays. And yeah, I'm into that.
Dibs on not Mr. Yen.
It's actually Miss Yen. So
oh gosh.
Get it right.
But either way, I'm not doing the voice.
Oh man.
Either way, these cards kind of force you to.
You better give me a simple one, so otherwise I will do the voice.
That's the thing. One of my favorite things to do is to pretend to be a character while playing a board game and annoying the people I'm playing with.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us on this, grand voyage.
Before we go, we do have to talk about the deleted ending.
Okay.
So quick. God. It's just a little.
We didn't even okay, you're right. We didn't talk about the other controversy about her just throwing the Hope Diamond away into the sea at the end.
This is too much
no reason whatsoever.
One episode, guys.
It's fine. We're gonna finish it quick. It's a very silly ending. It's and as it turns out, the throwing the Hope Diamond into the ocean is a workaround for the actual ending they had, which was insane. Which was basically her kind of talking Billy Zane into throwing it off, I guess. Billy Paxton.
Bill Paxton.
Yes. And it also kind of recontextualized the whole movie to be about Brock Lovett, the Bill Paxton character, and about how he has changed and what he has learned from Titanic.
Well, he's the audience stand-in, right?
He's the James Cameron stand-in.
He's learned, but he's learned to think about the human cost of Titanic.
Yeah.
Which I guess is I'm saying what happened to me. I'm a real Brock Lovett over here.
Is there an implication that he has a romance now with Rose's daughter? That's pretty good.
Played by James Cameron's wife.
wife to be.
that's right.
That's one of the stand-in elements to it.
Good stuff. It's so good.
Were they also implying that like these guys are actual treasure hunters, and if they found a diamond in this like rubble, that they would own that diamond and be able to sell it? Because that can't be true, right?
You know, it is actually sunken treasure is a weird legal thing where it's basically the law is finders keepers.
But even if it's like a UNESCO site, isn't it like some sort of like
that? I don't know if it
or something.
Well, if was it 1995? I don't know.
If Brock Levitt had ripped this jewel from this old woman's hand, would it then belong to him because it was on international waters or something?
Yeah, I mean,
and then he becomes a ghost at sea when he dies because he stole the
I think it's probably more like for the fame and glory of having found this diamond and then...
No, they make it very clear in the framing device early on that he has investors that are paying him to look for this diamond specifically.
But that could also be like institutions who, museums,
Sure. I mean, it is, but you raise a good point that it is completely a moot point by the end because it turns out it's not at the bottom of the ocean and it's actually just been in this woman's possession and it belongs to her. Like, there's no salvage rights for taking it from a 100-year-old woman.
Well, after she drops it, can they then go get it? They know where it is.
Now it's not a part of the heritage site.
In fact, they're probably closer to it than they've ever been. They're right here.
No, I think they're farther. It could be anywhere and hundreds of miles that it could have sunk there, and it's just sitting in the sand as opposed to they thought it would be inside of a drawer or a box in a stateroom.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, I think the entire movie would be better if the diamond weren't part of the movie. But
well, I mean, you could cut the framing device,
couldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Like just
this could be a 2-hour and 40-minute, all set in the past movie.
I mean, it'd be even less than that.
Yeah,
I think it would be it'd be over 2 hours, but it would probably be 2.5, and maybe arguably more powerful for just staying with it the whole time.
Maybe. The framing device of her remembering stuff does excuse a lot of broad characterizations, as we've been talking about. So there is that.
Yeah.
There's that, but it would work as a melodrama anyway. I think it would work okay, and
I think there are plenty of reasons to want to hear her story that aren't wrapped around this stupid diamond.
Indeed.
Well, I mean, that is the point. Ultimately, that's the least important thing, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There are two things. I mean, one, we would miss out on Paul F. Tompkins doing the Brock Levitt character, like podcasts.
I have to hear that. Where is that? Is that Comedy Bang Bang?
It's on Comedy Bang Bang. I probably got it elsewhere, but it's fantastic that he just gets real deep into the minutia of treasure hunting and how far underwater it has to be before it counts as treasure. Like, it can't just be like 3 inches. Anyway. Does a great raspy Paxton voice. Anyway, the other thing that you miss if the pop-up trivia is to believe is that this movie is like exactly to the minute, as the running time is exactly how long it took the Titanic to sink from hitting the iceberg.
I didn't know that. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
I don't even know if that's true, but I've heard that bandied around.
It could be made up, yes.
That seems like the Cameron thing of just he'd be into that for whatever weird reason.
It's so
like,
fast.
who could possibly care?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's not quite precise. Like, the iceberg hits and then there's like there's an hour and 20 minutes left, but I think some of that is them cutting away, so it's not real time.
Right, yeah, there's stuff that takes place on the...
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well.
Great
movie,
guys.
It's fast anyway. Good movie? Good? I'm going good.
I'm going great.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going great.
I'm going great.
Okay, it's good.
Especially after talking about it today, it's gone from good to great.
It was super fun to talk about, that's for sure. Yeah, fascinating.
Like, after 25 years, you're still like treating Cameron like Cal's treating Picasso. Like, this Cameron guy never amount to nothing.
No, look,
you see it.
I've been effusively gushing over
Cal.
many Cameron films over the run of this thing.
Just not
talking
this
about
one.
how great Aliens is or Terminator 2, and this one's not important to me. I'm sorry. It's
to each
good.
our own,
Yeah,
It's important to the world.
Do you think
clearly
Jamie Lee Curtis, Arnold Schwarzenegger love story in True Lies is a better love story than Titanic.
I don't. That one's demented. But I do like that movie, though. I think I might like it more than Titanic. The sort of weird sitcom that they're doing is.
All right, that's enough. There's hot takes, and then
How
there's
does she
whatever
not
this
know
is. Get
How
off my
does she not know
podcast.
it's her husband?
All right.
And with that, cue the penny whistle.
It's actually going to outro with Arnold saying lines, but yeah.
Are we not going to include the key change in there?
Maybe I will end with this slide with. Who knows? Okay. Anyway, it's the end of Titanic. Thank you for joining us, both of you. I really appreciated having you with us to talk about this film. This is a very important movie, very important James Cameron film, and rate and review the podcast on the app of your choice. That helps us. Thank you for listening as well. Good night.
Ciao.